See, and I wear hearing aids, so I can't wear earbuds.
You know, they have ones that Bluetooth to your phone and everything,
Oh,
your
yeah.
TV. Yeah.
Bluetooth head, wow.
Hearing aids.
Today's tech,
No,
Interesting.
hearing aids.
today's
yeah.
technology,
Oh, yeah.
telling you.
All right, let's get on the air, Dave.
Good evening, everyone. I'm opening the meeting of the Bristol Township Planning Commission. I'd like to welcome our viewing audience and those in attendance. If you kindly stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm going to ask you to remain standing. To keep in mind our troops that are in harm's way, our prisoners of war, are killed in action, are missing in action, for those suffering that war in Ukraine, the children who have been separated from their parents, any personal intentions you may have. Thank you very much. Okay, this evening we have, before we go into our agenda, we do have consideration of the minutes from our September 21st Planning Commission meeting. Commissioners, you all have a copy of those minutes. You've had an opportunity to review them. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and second to approve. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Our first item on the agenda is conditional use for Romani Enterprises Corporation. I hope I said that properly. 1350 Street Road, Bensalem, PA, requesting conditional use approval in order to construct a fast food restaurant, Popeyes, on the property located at 1111 Veterans Highway, Bristol, PA, tax parcel number 5-27-103. Good evening, sir.
All right. Good evening, Commission. Bryce McGuigan from Begley Carlin here on behalf of the applicant and the equitable property owner, Romani Enterprises Corporation. Thank you very much for having us here this evening. I have with me tonight are the applicant, Nazif Romani, owner of the corporation, together with Justin Giannotti, our lead engineer on the project. Now, as a matter of housekeeping, the first item on the agenda is the requested recommendation regarding the conditional use approval, but we also have a second item on the agenda, which is the recommendation that we're asking the Commission to make for approval for our final and preliminary land development application as well. Considering that both matters obviously relate to the same Popeyes, the same property, it makes sense from at least the applicant's perspective, and from what I understand, there is a baseball game on this evening, so from a time perspective, it might make sense to address both of them at the same time, and then perhaps have two separate votes at the end on each separate agenda item.
Well, I appreciate your consideration, Bryce, but we do one at a time, so we'll go over the conditional use first.
That works for me, sir.
Okay.
So thank you again for having us here this evening. Obviously, I represent the applicant, Romani Enterprises. Just a brief background of the project before I get into the conditional use standard and so on at issue. The subject property here, it's 0.62 acres. It's currently vacant with a little bit of miscellaneous paving from a prior commercial use. It is zoned in the C Commercial Zoning District and is also part of the Town Center Overlay District. What we're proposing here today, and you see...
Bryce, excuse me, Bryce, I am going to ask you, do you happen to have a pointer?
I don't, but our engineer
All
luckily
right,
came prepared.
so that our viewing audience can see what it is you're talking about.
Sure. So Thanks, Bob. Appreciate you putting that up there. So what you're seeing here is the existing features plan here. The site that's in this yellow box that I'm tracing is the parcel at issue. Like I said, it is currently a vacant property. It's about 0.62 acres. There is some existing paving. To be candid, it's not the prettiest property. Nearby, you have some other commercial uses, including from 2 properties down, you have a Dunkin' Donuts. The plan, if we could cycle to the next, to the next sheet of our plan here. Thanks, Bob. With respect to our plan, we're proposing to construct a single structure here. It's approximately 2,300 square feet that will serve as a Popeyes fast food restaurant with an accessory drive-through. The plan will also be to have access through this one designated driveway, which will be at a signalized entrance here on Veterans Highway. With respect to the actual property itself, before we came here today, way back in, I believe, May or June of this year, we needed some zoning relief. So we went before the zoning hearing board to request variances related to, among other things, impervious surface, setbacks, parking, lack of a loading space, because we don't need that, together with some other street tree relief as well. The zoning hearing board voted unanimously to approve our request of relief, and as a result, we proceeded forward with submitting land development plans and obviously receiving review letters from Gilmore, the Township Fire Marshal, so on and so forth. What we've also done is we've obviously submitted an application for a conditional use approval. And to address that briefly before we get into some of the nuts and bolts with the land development, with respect to our use is a D5 fast food restaurant use, which is allowed as a conditional use in the Town Center Overlay District. What we're proposing is obviously very similar to some of the other fast food establishments within the TC Overlay District, which include Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, Wendy's, and Taco Bell. Essentially, the ordinance provides a few objective standards that the Commission and subsequently Council are required to consider before granting a conditional use or recommending the grant of a conditional use. Specifically, these 4 factors, I'll go through them each individually, and if the Commission has any questions for myself or our engineer or the applicant, we'll be happy to address those afterward. Specifically, the first condition is whether the property, whether the use rather, is suitable for the property in question. I would submit that this existing vacant property that is part of this commercial corridor is quite suitable for a fast food restaurant. It works on the site, it works in the general area, and respectfully, this is going to be a significant improvement to the general local area and fit in with what's there now. There's really no reason why this isn't suitable. The second requirement is whether it's in conformance with the zoning ordinance. Initially it wasn't, but we did go through the zoning hearing board and got all the required variances, so now it is in full conformance with the zoning ordinance, so there is no issue with the second requirement. The third requirement is whether it is suitable with respect to highway traffic and access. What I would say to this is we did get we did submit a traffic impact study. We've also had conversations with PennDOT, and Mr. Giannotti can go into more detail if the Commission would like. However, those preliminarily, there have only been a few minor issues, nothing to write home about, and we don't anticipate any concerns with getting those final approvals. With respect to other properties similarly situated along the Veterans Highway corridor, access to this property actually, if you ask me, would be superior to a lot of these other properties and safer because this will be a signalized intersection here. So there's really no issues with access, no issues with traffic. It's a commercial area, commercial use. The last requirement here is whether the property is in, or the use rather, is in conformance with the sound standards of subdivision and land development practice. And what I would say to you is this kind of dovetails into the next portion of our application with respect to land development. However, we are only requesting 9 waivers. They are generally standard waivers or some of the other ones I'll be happy to get into in more detail. There's nothing groundbreaking, nothing to write home about. We are in generally compliance with the SALDO, and we are in compliance with all of the recommendations that were within the Gilmore review letter. And otherwise, as I said at the outset, this recommended use, or this proposed use, really will be a significant upgrade to the area, and certainly an upgrade on what's there at the property right now. And for all those reasons, we would submit, and we would ask for a recommendation of approval of our conditional use application. And obviously, if the commission has any specific questions, we'll be more than happy to address those at this time.
Thank you, Bryce. Commissioners, you've heard the presentation. Are there any questions?
Yes. Along with the 4 requirements, you're also in compliance with Gilmore and Associates letter, yes?
Yes, there were, with respect to the comments, everything's a will comply, with the exception, there are 2 items that we've added to our waiver list.
Okay.
Specifically, the 2 items are in section 5B4 and 5B5. Those specific sections of SALDO are 177-41M, which is the allowance of a radius of less than 5 feet for all curbs in the parking area, and 177-41Q, which requires 2 street trees for every 10 parking spaces. I would obviously be more than happy to address those during the land development part of the process. But again, those are the only 2 issues that we cannot comply with, that we've requested waivers from. The remainder of the review letter is a will comply.
Okay.
Any other questions? Samantha? Kurt? No. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Comments? Hearing none. Commissioners, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion. To recommend to council the conditional use of Romani Enterprises Corporation, 1350 Street Road, Bensalem, PA, requesting conditional use approval in order to construct a fast food restaurant, Popeyes, on the property located at 1111 Veterans Highway, Bristol, PA, tax parcel number 5-27-103, contingent upon that the Gilmore and Associates letter is a will comply, with the exception of those of section 5B4 and 5B5, along with the 4 requirements.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous. Yes, so you're recommended for conditional use.
Thank you very much.
Next item on our agenda is land development for Romani Enterprise Corporation, 1350 Street Road, Bensalem, PA, requesting preliminary and final land development approval in order to construct a fast food restaurant, Popeyes, on the property located at 1111 Veterans Highway, Bristol, PA, tax parcel number 5-27-103.
Good evening again, Commission. Thank you.
Evening, Bryce.
Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me yet again tonight.
Been a while.
You know, I'm sure the Commission would has multiple other things you'd prefer to do this evening that may or may not involve watching a Phillies game, but thank you for entertaining us yet again. Now, the second part here is, as the Chair said, for recommended approval for our preliminary and final land development application. With respect to this phase of the project, we've obviously had a chance to review the review letters prepared by Gilmore and Associates, the Fire Marshal. As I stated earlier, everything within that letter is a will comply with the exception of 2 items. And just a little bit of housekeeping. The 2 of the initial waivers that we requested that were discussed within the Gilmore letter, waivers number 4 and 5, we are withdrawing those waiver requests. Those are will complies, no issue with respect to those. However, we are adding 2 waivers, which were comments within the Gilmore letter. As I stated earlier, those are within 5B4 and 5B5. So we removed 2 waiver requests, we added 2 waiver requests, we are still at 9 waiver requests. At this point, whatever is the commission's pleasure, I will be more than happy to address each one of these waivers individually if the commission prefers. Otherwise, if there are any particular waivers the commission would prefer me to focus on, I'll do that. Or if the commission just has questions, then our engineer and myself will be more than happy to address those.
Thank you very much. And Bryce, we do need you to go through the waiver request, identifying each waiver by number of what it is for our records.
For sure, no, not a problem at all. So I'm going to go through them with the actual saldo section, but I'll also, for ease of use, I'll also refer to them by the number that they're referenced on in the Gilmore review letter so that we can all follow along a little easier. So if we look at the Gilmore letter, look at number 1, which is section 177-14E. That is a request in order to allow us to proceed forward with final and preliminary approval simultaneously. I would submit that's a rather standard request. Rather standard request. I hope I don't have to discuss too much. The second one, number 2, section 177-40F. That's a waiver to request that the minimum driveway radius for our access driveway will be less than 25 feet. What we're proposing is a radius of 20 feet, which I would submit, particularly with respect to this property and the access to the property, is more than sufficient to allow vehicles to safely ingress and egress to the property. Again, that's something that we've designed from an engineering perspective and something that we've obviously presented to Gilmore, and we'll discuss with the traffic engineer as well. If there's any suggestions, we'll incorporate those, but there's really no specific concern with access and with what we're proposing. The third waiver request, number 3, section 177-41F, that's to allow less than 15 feet of open space between a curb line of an uncovered parking area and the nearest building. With respect to the site, just the narrow configuration of the site and where the parking is, we need to have that closer to the building. That's just the way, the only way we can make the site workable, with specifically also with respect to the drive-through as well. So that's why we're requesting that waiver. Waiver number 4 in the Gilmore letter, that is withdrawn, so don't worry about 4. 5, section 177-48D3. That's to not require the edges of slopes to be a minimum of 5 feet from the property and right-of-way lines. This request simply allows us to more evenly smooth the transition between certain existing grades on the site. There's going to be some of the street trees that we're planting. That's going to go, I'll talk about that in a moment. Those are only going to be a foot away from the ultimate right-of-way line. So, you know, there's going to be some development in that general area, so that's why we're requesting that waiver. With respect to waiver number 6, that is withdrawn, so please don't worry about 6. Waiver 7, section 177-51A1F, which is to allow our street trees to be planted less than 5 feet beyond the ultimate right-of-way line. Again, this relates to the fact, I mentioned it a moment ago, that the property, it's a little narrow with respect to everything that we have to squeeze into that particular area near that ultimate right-of-way line. That's one of the reasons why we requested a variance before the zoning hearing board to allow parking 6.5 feet from the ultimate right-of-way line. So we're dealing with kind of that truncated space. So instead of having trees 5 feet, we're having them 1 foot from the ultimate right-of-way line. But again, we're providing the trees and we're doing it the best we can in this particular area. And something that I would also submit is going to be better than a lot of comparable properties in that area. There's really not a lot of greenery in certain spots down Veterans Highway. Waiver number 8, section 177-91A1 and section 177-92A1. That relates to the scale by which plans are drawn. Again, a rather standard waiver. Number 9, section 177-91C3 and 177-92C3, which again is another standard waiver so that we do not have to include all utilities and existing features on our plan within 200 feet of the property. It's a small property, that would be slightly overkill. We have 2 additional waivers, like I mentioned. Those are not on the Gilmore letter under the waiver section. Our 8th waiver, so I guess would be based on the numbers I've been going through, would be 10. Section 177-41M, which is to allow a radius of less than 5 feet for all curbs within the parking area. Specifically, this relates to the curbing within the drive-through. We have 2 separate drive-through lanes, and some of those turns are a little narrow, but again, it's a drive-through. Cars are going to be traveling rather slow unless something happens that's well beyond our control. So with respect to turning radiuses, there is no practical issue with what we're proposing. And again, this has been engineered through Justin's office, so no significant concerns with that. And the last waiver request is section 177-41Q, which is to not require 2 trees for every 10 parking spaces. By this calculation, we would otherwise have to provide 4 street trees. We only have space on the property for 2. We've also received a variance related to a somewhat similar issue, where otherwise pursuant to the zoning ordinance, we would need 6 street trees. We received relief for only 2. So this kind of doubles on that zoning relief that we've already received. So that's kind of the last issue there. So other than those 9 waivers, we're completely in conformance with Saldo. Every other item within the Gilmore review letter is a will comply. And if the commission has any specific questions about any of those waivers or any other comment within the Gilmore letter, then obviously myself or Mr. Giannotti will be more than happy to do our best to respond to that.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, you've heard the presentation. Are there any questions?
Yes. Are you in compliance with the Pannoni letter dated September 30th, 2022?
Yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Samantha? Kurt? Bob? Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to recommend to council preliminary and final land development for Romney Enterprises Corporation, 1350 Street Road, Bensalem, in order to construct a fast food restaurant, a Popeyes, on the property located at 1111 Veterans Highway, Bristol, PA, tax parcel 5-27-103. We would grant all the waivers in the Gilmore and Associates letter dated September 30th, with the exceptions that we are taking away 2 waivers, 177-41N and 177-48D. They have been, 177-48D3, they have been withdrawn. And we are adding 2 waivers, 177-44M, in regards to the radius of 5 feet.
Actually, I don't mean to interrupt. I think the 2 that we're removing, you were correct on the first one, 177-41N. The second one is 177-51A1C.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It is. Withdrawn is 177-51A1C. And then the addition of the 9th and final waiver is 177-41Q with regard to street trees.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. You as well.
Have a good one.
Our next item on the agenda is subdivision, land and land development, Maple Shade Development LLC, 269 Canal Road, Fairless Hills, PA, requesting preliminary and final subdivision/land development approval in order to construct 24 single-family dwellings on the property located at 2335 Prospect Avenue, Croydon, Pennsylvania, PA, tax parcels number 5-26-008, 5-26-001, and 5-26-010 in an R2 residential zone district of Bristol Township.
Good evening. and
Good evening, sir.
Thank you for having us here this evening. Alan Toadvine, also from Begley Carlin. And we're here tonight on behalf of the Maple Shade Development LLC, which is the equitable owner of the property formerly known as the Maple Shade School. And you may recall that we were here before the commission back in April of this year because we had petitioned for a rezoning. At that time, I believe we presented a sketch plan. Not a lot of detail, but pretty detailed. So tonight we actually have the final plans to present to the commission. Is that?
Go one page forward.
And Alan, do you happen to have a pointer for?
Yes.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
is that fuzzy or is it me?
What's that?
Is that fuzzy or is it me? That's just a Dumac drawing. I didn't ask about Heath's.
That was a softball. Alan and I actually rehearsed it. Okay. Right. Sorry, not to the board.
So I'll ask Mr.
And
Fuzzy to
moving
point
right
to
along.
to the appropriate portions of the plan. So the site's comprised of 3 tax parcels as indicated in the opening. It consists of approximately 5.63 acres. The plan before you proposes a 24-lot subdivision, and in addition, we're proposing to vacate 2 paper streets contained within the project. The first one that Mr. Dumac's pointing to is Beaver, and the other paper street is Midvale. We filed with the township petitions to vacate both of these streets. You also have tonight the review letters from Gilmore and Associates dated October 13th, 2022, one for each petition to vacate. Just briefly, the petition to vacate on Beaver, we have all those property owners with and I don't know if, can you see it because my eyes are really bad, with the proposed improvements to their driveways, because what's going to happen with that vacation is the entire vacated street will be merged into their parcels, so that we'll need to extend their driveways in order to reach the new street that we're proposing to construct. And then on Midvale, you see that we're not running the street through, we're ending it, and the property owners at the end of the vacated street will each own half of the street that's proposed to be vacated. So that is the information on the vacation. The next slide shows the actual 24 lots with the new street installed, with the revisions to Midvale, and the proposed tot lot and other improvements, and the building envelopes for the 24 single-family residential dwellings. And the next slide who's fuzzy? is the detail of the proposed tot lot and the actual equipment and fixtures that we're suggesting be installed on the tot lot. So that's an overview of the project. I have Mr. Dumac obviously here this evening, the project's engineer. I also have the principals of the LLC, if there's any questions for them. But briefly, the 2 review letters from Gilmore and Associates dated October 13th, 2022, one for the petition to vacate Beaver Avenue, the other for the petition to vacate Midvale Avenue, are both all will complies. The Gilmore and Associates review letter for the land development and subdivision plan dated October 13th, 2022, again, are all will complies. We obviously have 18 listed waivers that we'll go through individually, but other than that, all comments are will complies. There's an April 8th, 2022 review letter from Pannoni and Associates, traffic engineer. Again, That is, all will comply. And finally, you should have a plan review from the Bristol Township Office of the Fire Marshal, which the original one was dated 11/23/21. That was based on our sketch plan. And then a second review dated September 27, 2022. Basically, he has no issues or comments other than concerns about adequate stormwater management. So with that in mind, I'd like to bring Mr. Dumack forward and have him address each of the proposed waivers that we're requesting, if that's okay.
Okay. I'll sit.
Well, I prefer you use the podium,
Yeah,
please.
use the podium.
Thank you very much.
It's because it's being televised.
You can have the other remote.
Thank you very much.
So we'll go through the requested waivers in accordance with the numbering as contained in the Gilmore and Associates review letter. So the first one, obviously, is waiver request number 1, and that is merely to combine the preliminary and final recommendations so that we don't have to do those separately.
I am going to him to do it instead of me.
Whoever,
He just invited me up and then he's
right,
doing it.
whoever would like to do it would be fine. I will ask you to read the numbers of each one of them for our records, please.
Absolutely. So for the first waiver, it's section 177-14E, to not require separate submissions of preliminary and final. We have provided the level of detail required for the final land development, and the review letters from Gilmore and Associates reflect that. Second waiver is 177-34F, to not require reverse frontage lots along Newport Road. In this instance, there are a number of existing single-family homes fronting on Newport Road. We're asking for relief in order to allow for that. The next three waivers, 177-35A, 177-45, 177-67, to not require curbs along Newport Road frontages to allow the existing cartway widths to remain. There are no curbs along that section of Newport Road, and the width of Newport Road is satisfactory. It's an existing street. The traffic coming through will not substantially change with the addition of the 24 lots. Next waiver, 177-36A2AE3, to permit a centerline radius of 75 feet along Prospect Ave instead of the required 150 feet, so as to allow Prospect Avenue to be aligned as requested by township consultants. We have designed a realignment of Prospect, to align as best we can with the opposite side of the street. If we were to go to a minimum 150-foot radius, we would either be taking out the downhill neighbor's front yard or causing a major realignment of Prospect all the way back. Next waiver is actually two, 177-36A5 and 177-38G, to not require a 50-foot straight course at the intersection of Prospect and Newport Road, as to allow the Prospect Avenue to be aligned as requested.
I believe we missed
I
number
missed one.
5.
Which one?
Number 5.
Number 5.
Which one's number 5?
177-36A, 2B. It's a waiver to request to not require super elevation on Prospect Avenue.
My apologies.
At the intersection of Newport Road. The super elevation at this intersection would be offered. Do you want to point to that?
Sure. Same intersection we've been talking about. The next two waivers, which I rattled off, 177-36A5 and 177-38G, to not require a 50-foot straight course at the intersection of Prospect and Newport Road, to allow Prospect Avenue to be aligned as requested by township consultants. Again, if we were to have a 50-foot straight, what would end up happening is, again, we would start eating into the front yards of all the residents on the opposite side of Prospect, which is unacceptable. Next one is 177-40H, to not require all lots abutting a collector arterial street to be double frontage. Again, it's the same or similar waiver that we already requested. There are single-family homes on the opposite side of the street, up and down Newport Road at this point. 177-45B to permit Belgian block curbing instead of concrete curb. It's purely aesthetic. Belgian block curbing adds a nice touch of class to the environment. 177-47F to not require lot lines to be at right angles or radial to the street lines from street line to the rear lot line. We're specifically, realistically talking about, I believe, 2 or 3 lots right in this area. We have a unique shaped parcel. The parcel's not a rectangle. So we've managed to make the majority of these lots all perpendicular. We just have these few at that point that are at unique angles. 177-47H to permit lots 13 and 14 to have a length to width ratio that exceeds 2 to 1. And it's these lots in here. Specifically, we're relocating Beaver and moving it further away. So it gives us a extended parcel. On the flip side of the coin is we also are utilizing that area for an underground stormwater management system. So it gives us additional square footage. To permit the edge of slope, I'm sorry, 170, I'm sorry?
Number 11?
177-48D3?
Yes.
Okay.
Number 11.
Waiver number 11, we're getting there. To permit edge of slope to be within 5 feet from the property or right-of-way lines of the street. The reason, realistically, we're regrading all along the right-of-way edge. It's a required waiver. 177-49A to permit the proposed storm sewer easements to have a minimum 15-foot width instead of the required 20-foot width. Realistically, we do have a couple of easements that are crossing through residential properties. If we were to have a 20-foot wide easement, it would start to eat into the building envelopes and reduce the size of the usable lot. Section 177-49D to prevent driveways, sidewalks, fences, and shrubs within the area of the storm sewer easement. Again, we have storm easements that are crossing residential properties. The next items, 177-92C3, 177-91C3, relates to utilizing an aerial photograph instead of all existing features, utilities. What did I miss now?
It's like 5 of them. It's 6. You need to go to 14, which is once, okay,
Hold on, which number was that?
177-51A.
A1A, to permit street trees?
Yes. Number 14.
Sorry. 177, it's slightly out of order from the sheet I'm working on.
What is this?
Oh. It's easier to read mine. All right. Item 14, 177-51A1A, waiver is requested to permit street trees to be planted along the subject property frontage instead of both sides of the streets where suitable existing street trees or natural wooded areas do not exist, as to not disturb existing residential properties. We're only proposing to put street trees on our property, not on adjacent neighbors. 177-51A1C, item 15, a waiver is requested to permit street trees to be placed in an informal arrangement to avoid conflict with proposed utilities. The trees are located as to avoid conflict with what's being proposed. Item 16, 177-51A1F, waiver is requested to not require street trees to be placed 5 feet behind the future right-of-way line. Proposed stormwater piping is proposed in those areas. Item 17, 177-53A1, waiver is requested to not require a minimum of 1,500 square foot of suitable recreation land per dwelling unit. The plan proposes 19,762 square feet of open space, and the applicant requests to pay a fee in lieu of the remaining 16,238 square feet. Total fee in lieu would be $16,238. And the last one is a double waiver, 177-91C3 and 177-92C3. Waivers requested to allow an aerial photograph in lieu of requiring the location, names, widths of streets, location and names of railroads, location of sanitary sewer, storm drains, water mains, culverts, petroleum or petroleum product lines, gas lines, etc., within 200 feet of the site. And that, I believe, is all she wrote. Now I have a sore throat.
Thank you, Mr. Dumack. So that's the extent of the waiver requests. I don't know if the board has any specific questions as to any of the planned features or waivers.
Yes. Do you have a highway occupancy permit for Newport Road?
Not as of yet.
It's in process.
It's in the process?
Yes.
Okay, so as long as you're in the process of obtaining that.
Yes.
Also, the sidewalks, there's another project in the making that's west of the property.
Right?
Look at me go. All right. West of the property.
Yeah.
They're also building sidewalks
We've agreed to.
to combine.
Yes.
Awesome. That makes tonight so much easier. Thank you.
Will these properties be age restricted or deed restricted for?
No, they're not going to be age restricted.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Samantha? Kurt? Bob? From the audience? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to recommend to council the subdivision/land development of Maple Shade Development LLC, 269 Canal Road, Fairless Hills, PA, requesting preliminary and final subdivision/land development approval in order to construct 24 single-family dwellings on the property located at 2335 Prospect Ave, Croydon, PA, tax parcels number 5-26-008, number 5-26-001, and number 5-26-010 in an R2 residential zone district of Bristol Township, contingent upon that you're in the process of obtaining an HOP. Also that you're in compliance with the Gilmore and Associates letter dated October 13, 2022, as well as the, please hold, Pannoni letter dated April 8th, 2022. And the fire marshal letter. I think that was it.
Yes.
Along with the,
Condition.
I knew it, 18 waivers requested in the said Gilmore and Associates letter on pages 2 and 3. There it is.
And also conditioned on our cooperating with connecting the sidewalk with the development that's east.
Condition upon cooperating with connecting the sidewalk with said project west of yours.
Oh, west, okay.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved in second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks
you
for coming
your
out
time.
tonight.
Yeah,
Having
thank you.
nothing else on our agenda, I would entertain a motion to
I'll make that
adjourn.
motion.
It's been moved
Second.
and second. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Go Phillies.
Yeah.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
What happened? What happened?
Great one, everybody.
That was okay.
That was a good one.
What happened?
And you didn't go on time.
Still?
Yo, I did.
What inning are they in, like 7 or
George, I
8?
didn't know if you were taking that last one. That's why I looked at it. Oh, you did? Oh, no, you're good. Hi, that, yeah, I wrote mine down before. Highway occupancy.
You were taking notes about an exact. This guy's smooth criminal over here. Look at this thing.
Gangster. Gangster.
Gangster.
Yeah, just call me tomorrow. Let me know. I won't throw it.
Yeah. That was one heck of a softball. Thanks.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, take care.